It was just after noon, and the sun vanished. The ground trembled. Rocks split open. A curtain thicker than a man's hand tore in two on its own, and from their tombs the dead walked again. These were not legends. These were eyewitness accounts recorded by historians, preserved in ancient manuscripts, and still discussed centuries later. On the day Jesus of Nazareth died, something happened, something the world had never seen and has never seen since. In this documentary, we examine 5 supernatural signs that occurred at the precise moment of Jesus' crucifixion. Events so powerful, so precise, so symbolic, that they shook not just the earth, but the very foundation of human history. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over all the land. Matthew 27:45. At the peak of daylight, an unnatural darkness fell over the land. This wasn't an eclipse. Astronomers confirm eclipses do not occur during full moons, and Passover, by Jewish tradition, always falls during a full moon. So what happened? The prophet Amos, writing 750 years earlier, foretold this moment. "In that day, declares the Lord, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight." Amos 8:9. This darkness was not coincidence. It was cosmic judgment, a divine signal. As Jesus bore the weight of humanity's sin, the world went dark. Witnesses were terrified. In Jerusalem, day became night. And yet, the darkness may have been the least shocking sign of all. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. Matthew 27:51. Inside the Jewish temple stood a veil, a thick, woven curtain over 30 feet high. It separated the holy place from the most holy place, the place where God's presence was believed to dwell. Only the high priest could enter once a year, and only with blood. This curtain wasn't a symbol. It was a barrier. And when Jesus died, that barrier was removed. But notice, it tore from top to bottom. Not from human hands below, but from divine hands above. The meaning? The old covenant had been fulfilled. Sacrifices were no longer needed. Through Jesus, mankind now had direct access to God. The earth shook. The rocks split. Matthew 27:51. Then, the earth began to move. A violent earthquake struck the region. Boulders cracked open. Foundations shifted. In biblical history, earthquakes mark moments of divine encounter, when God gave the law to Moses on Mount Sinai, when Elijah stood before the presence of the Lord, and now at the death of the Son of God. But this quake was different. It didn't just shake the land, it shook the spiritual order. This was the collapse of the old religious system. A new covenant was being written not with ink, but with blood. The tombs broke open, and the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. Matthew 27:52. Of all the supernatural signs, this may be the most astonishing. At the moment of Jesus' death, graves cracked open, and days later, after his resurrection, they came out. Holy men and women long since buried walked the streets of Jerusalem. They were seen, they were recognized, they were alive. This was not a hallucination, not folklore. It was a preview, a divine foreshadowing of what Jesus had just accomplished. Victory over death itself. The resurrection of these saints was not the finale. It was the trailer for what was to come. And it confirmed that Jesus didn't just escape death. He defeated it for everyone who would believe. Surely this man was the Son of God. Matthew 27:54. He was a Roman centurion, a man trained for war, a man who had watched many die. But something about this crucifixion was different. He had seen the darkness fall, felt the quake beneath his feet, heard the words Jesus spoke even as he died, and this battle-hardened soldier was broken. He looked at the lifeless man on the cross and made a confession no one expected. Surely, this was the Son of God. In a single moment, the man who had supervised Christ's execution became the first to declare his divinity after his death. Proof that no heart is too far gone, that grace reaches even those who drove the nails. 5 signs: darkness at noon, a veil torn in two, a violent earthquake, the resurrection of the saints, and a Roman soldier brought to faith. Each one timed perfectly with Jesus' final breath. Each one a statement. This death was different. This death was powerful. This death was the fulfillment of everything the prophets had spoken. In the span of moments, the physical world, the spiritual realm, and the human heart all responded. Because Jesus' death wasn't the end of a good man's life. It was the turning point in the story of redemption. On that hill outside Jerusalem, heaven touched earth, and the echoes of that moment still resound today. These were not just signs for the people of that time. They are signs for us here, now, reminding us that death is not the end, grace is still offered, and the veil is forever torn. The question is not whether the signs were real, but whether we will respond to what they meant.